Well, I think we've made some good progress in the first round of discussions of the home occupation ordinance rewrite. We now have round two back from the Planning Commission, and while the biggest problem has been corrected by removing the type 2 home occupations from the requirement to obtain a permit, we still have, I think, some work that would be worthwhile to do in cleaning up some other areas of this ordinance and making the ordinance clearer and more consistent and easier to administer. The first major area of concern is section 74-467, which is the authorization section. What I've done here is I have modified it somewhat. I will show the changes in a moment, but first I'm going to go ahead and read it, and it's so that you get the purpose of it. A home occupation is permitted as an accessory use by the residents of a dwelling subject to the provisions in this article. The use shall be incidental or subordinate to the residential use of the dwelling. The expressed intent behind regulating home occupations is as follows. Number 1, to preserve the residential character of neighborhoods. Number 2, to preserve the residential rights of neighbors while reasonably allowing residents to utilize their dwelling to enhance or fulfill personal economic goals. Number 3, to establish reasonable criteria for the operation of home occupations in dwelling units in order to keep the dwelling units suitable for their intended residential purpose. 4, to preserve and protect municipal and utility services such as streets, sewers, and water systems against increased utilization typical in commercial districts. 5, to preserve tranquility in neighborhoods by prohibiting activities that could reasonably impose a nuisance such that neighbors' residential utilization of their own properties is diminished. Number 6, to prevent activities usually conducted within commercial districts from being conducted in residential areas for safety reasons. Number 7, to recognize that many types of work can be done in a home with little or no effect on the surrounding neighborhood. What I'm trying to do here with these changes are to specifically define zoning concerns that we're trying to address from the activities involved in home occupations, rather than generally making broad generalizations and somehow linking the idea that because something is an economic activity or involves income production, it is necessarily a zoning concern. I just don't believe that's true any longer. It may have been 50 years ago when you couldn't do economic activities from home that didn't potentially have some impact, either customers coming or I mean, there are just so many different technologies that now completely change the picture. Computers, cell phones, the internet, all the enhanced use of shipping and door-to-door shipping. All of those are things that are components of life now in a residential neighborhood that are expected. So again, what I've tried to do is I've tried to make each of these items reflect a particular actual zoning matter rather than just some general statement. The first one obviously was designed to preserve the residential character of neighborhoods, specifically says that. The second one, item 2, is about balancing competing rights between a resident and the neighbors. Number 3 is to preserve our residential buildings as residential structures. Number 4 is to regulate for infrastructure impact. Number 5 is nuisance rationale for regulating. Number 6 is a safety rationale for regulating. And number 7 just makes the point that economic activity is not always a zoning concern. So those are the green represent the changes that I've made in order to get to the language that I read.